The Sith Rule of Two mandates that there must always be two Sith Lords, a master and an apprentice, no more, no less. Once there were many Sith Lords, but the continuous lust for power instilled by Sith teachings led to chaos in which the Sith repeatedly killed each other. Recognizing that the Sith had become victims of their own greed, Darth Bane created the Rule of Two to maintain a semblance of loyalty and respect among contemporaries, and to ensure secrecy as the Sith sought revenge over the Jedi. Restricted numbers made each Sith Lord more important to the other as they relied only on themselves and one another for knowledge and power. Despite this restructured power dynamic, however, it was the way of the Sith for one partner to eventually kill the other and replace him. Loyalty between Sith Master and Apprentice was perhaps the most important component of their relationship, but it always came with a fundamental understanding that one day that loyalty would be broken. And the following excerpt from the canon novel Lords of the Sith provides some deeper insight into this dynamic with a particular focus on the unique relationship between Lords Vader and Sidious. Soon after destroying the Jedi, the Emperor had told Vader that he would one day be tempted to kill him. He'd said that the relationship between Sith Apprentice and Master was symbiotic, but in a delicate balance. An apprentice owed his master loyalty, a master owed his apprentice knowledge, and must show only strength. But the obligations were reciprocal and contingent. Should either fail in his obligation, it was the duty of the other to destroy him. The Force required it. Since before the Clone Wars, Vader's master had never shown anything but strength, and so Vader intended to show nothing but loyalty. In that way, their mutual rule was secure. Perhaps Vader would attempt to kill his master one day. Sith apprentices ordinarily did. They must if they were trained well. An apprentice was unquestionably loyal until the moment he wasn't. Both master and apprentice knew this. But our relationship is different, Master, Vader had said then. Perhaps, his master had said. Perhaps. Or maybe self-delusion was part of the training a master instilled in an apprentice. So, this description of the Sith's relationship gives us quite a bit of insight, not just on the overarching principles of the Sith, but more interestingly on the relationship between Vader and Sidious. Both Sidious and Vader were aware that Vader could one day betray him, and neither one of them tried to convince themselves this was not at the very least a possibility. Vader himself entertains this thought within the novel, but in this specific reading, we also see that both men do feel there's a chance that their bond could prove different than that between the ordinary Sith of the past. Now, as we know at this point, Sidious was well prepared for the day his apprentice may attempt to turn on him and had contingencies ready and waiting, both to diminish Vader's chances of victory by making his suit particularly susceptible to Force lightning, and to have a backup plan in the event that his apprentice did succeed in betraying him by pursuing the path to immortality on Exegol. It's pretty clear both in this novel and outside of it that Palpatine does expect Vader to turn on him. When it comes to the Sith philosophy as a whole, this reading emphasizes the fact that the threat and expectation of betrayal from one Sith to the other ensures that the Sith will always be as strong as they can be. Neither party is ever allowed to get comfortable. They must always be strong, always be loyal, and in those virtues, one Sith Lord always has something to offer the other. Each member becomes expendable when they no longer offer those things, and so they're always in competition with one another, either trying to gain ground or fighting to stay ahead. And when the apprentice does eventually surpass the master as he should, the Sith as a whole reach a new height of power. Then the new master's apprentice will eventually do the same, and the cycle of exponential growth continues. Now, aside from the knowledge and support offered by their master, what other factors might prevent an apprentice from turning on his master? First, there is the obvious threat imposed by the master. It's the master's duty to remain stronger than his apprentice, and assuming he does so, or at least maintains the illusion that he is stronger, the apprentice is likely to be deterred from betrayal. I think we see this in all of Palpatine's apprentices. From Maul to Dooku to Vader, none of them were ever capable of dethroning Palpatine in a fair duel, and so they didn't even try it. Then there's the reality that the apprentice must also have an apprentice who is suited to fill his own shoes, ready to step up. Maul tried to train Savage, but neither of them could hold a candle to Sidious. Dooku had Ventress, but Palpatine snuffed that out before Dooku could act on it, and Vader had no one in canon until Luke presented a new opportunity, but Luke refused to join than his father. And from Palpatine's point of view, he was always seeking improvement, repeatedly replacing his apprentice with a stronger, more valuable one. Not only was he significantly stronger and wiser than all of his apprentices, but he always seemed to move on from them and find another one before they could even try to turn on him. As usual, Palpatine was always at least one step ahead. He and Vader combined to create a united force as strong as any the galaxy had seen before, and they worked well for a long time, but even after all they had been through, even after Vader's loyalty had been proven time and time again for over 20 years, Sidious was still ready to pounce at the opportunity Luke Skywalker presented, just as a worthy Sith Master should be. Palpatine believed, perhaps correctly, that he was the strongest being in the galaxy, and so in his mind, his continued title as the Master and Emperor of the galaxy could only be to the Sith's benefit, because anybody who replaced him would be weaker than himself. Now, when Anakin first turned to the dark side, he believed Vader would one day surpass him, but after his failure on Mustafar and the injuries that came with it, that possibility was erased. And that pushes us to wonder, if Vader hadn't lost to Obi-Wan, would Palpatine still have tried to weaken his apprentice in some way so that he could maintain an upper hand, or would he have carried on with the understanding that Vader was inevitably going to surpass him one day? In my opinion, I'd say Palpatine understood that Vader was going to become more powerful than himself, and he actually looked forward to that, but he was always going to have contingencies in place to extend his tenure for as long as possible. No Sith is out there looking to die for the cause of the Sith becoming stronger without them. They're going to fight tooth and nail until the bitter end. And it's also conceivable that Palpatine really did believe there was a chance that he and Vader's relationship could turn out different, and that they could rule together until the very end without betrayal. And it's certainly possible that Vader felt that way after Padme died, because Palpatine was really all he had. Throughout this novel, Vader fulfills his end of the deal, showing loyalty to his master, going above and beyond to protect him, and taking no chances with Palpatine's life. Vader genuinely fights hard to ensure that his master is safe at various points in the book, which yes, is his responsibility as the apprentice, but that reality coupled with the fact that he wonders aloud if their relationship could prove different in the end leads me to believe that Vader was ready and willing to serve as Palpatine's right hand for the rest of his life without ever betraying him. But it's also important to note that Vader holds this mentality and behaves in this way, at least in part, because Palpatine is stronger and far more intuitive than himself, and he shows that on a regular basis. And this is something we see traces of even into the original trilogy, as Vader makes it pretty clear that he cannot and will not betray his master, not only because of their relationship, but because he's afraid of his master's power. Essentially, he refuses to betray him because he knows he will fail. There is a point in the book where Palpatine is in trouble and Vader considers what could happen if his master were to die, but the thought proves to be nothing more than that, as he then quickly jumps in to help Palpatine. Perhaps if Palpatine had shown weakness, Vader would have turned on him and taken his place, but I don't think that's as sure a thing as one might expect, because I don't really know what he would have done from there. The promise of knowledge and guidance and power from Palpatine is one of the things that keeps Vader going over the years, and so without his master, I don't think he would have necessarily known what to do with himself. I think his life would lose most of the purpose that he was clinging to, and he'd become even more lonely and lost than he already was. Vader sort of resents his master for the way he always seems to be several steps ahead, seeing through him and challenging his thoughts and actions, but those very things also cause Vader to admire Palpatine in some ways, as he marvels at the abilities and the foresight that he does not have. It's a complicated relationship, it's a delicate relationship, but it's a powerful one that works for many years. And there's really not much reason to think it wouldn't have continued that way if Luke hadn't come along. He was the catalyst behind Vader's change of heart, and obviously if Vader had managed to turn Luke to the dark side and they went to kill the Emperor, that's a whole different ballgame and something Vader would be quite fond of. But what do you guys think about all of this? Do you think Palpatine and Vader's relationship could have been maintained until Vader's death if Luke had never come along, or would one of them have betrayed the other no matter what? And what are your thoughts on the rule of two? Do the guidelines for this dynamic make sense for the Sith, or should they have made some changes? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm going to end this video here, so thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like before you go, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and remember, the Force will be with you always.